Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I am John, making my long-awaited return. And of course, because it is International Women's Day, we had to honor this fine day the way that Jeff Probst himself would want us to do so, by having two men discuss it. And that's why this week we're getting the band back together. Andy is my co-host. Andy, I've missed you so much.
Hey, I just want to make clear, I scheduled Emma for this one, totally because I knew that it would fall on International Women's Day. I have it set, Google Alerts, all that for it. But, you just couldn't stay away. You missed me so much.
We are still celebrating 2/3 of International Women's Day, the international and the day.
That's right.
So
it is certainly a day. And yes, this podcast spans, well, not oceans so much, but you know, the other thing. Yeah, there's borders. You know, I could probably pass those borders a little more easily than others. But yes, it is an international day. You know, we are allies, so that's enough, right?
Well, it depends when people are listening to this podcast, if you want to call us allies.
Yeah, especially, you know, after, because I don't know if there's going to be a lot of women who will have a lot of good things to say about this episode. We'll see. Let's find out. What did you think about the episode?
Well, before we get started, I just want to point out something, and part of the reason that I muscled my way into this podcast, even though I was out of turn, was that by having this podcast with you, do you realize we have now been doing this for 12 seasons? By this point in the actual show,
well, hopefully that can continue for us. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
thank you for International Women's Day, that, by the way.
Good for the goose, good for the gander. Why is it not okay? Is that not the reward that everyone receives?
12 seasons. Oh, man. We should start making money off of this thing at some point.
Yeah, I really want to start talking about mattresses.
That's
and,
right.
Snack boxes.
Yeah, you guys are paying too much for your concert tickets, and you need to enter our promo code, PRP. In, I don't know, an app, find one. I'm just see if it works. That'd be amazing.
That would be awesome. Congratulations on your discount. We had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and also, we were supposed to talk last week. That didn't happen. And then I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. So it was actually going to be interesting to see if we ever would have talked in what was originally our podcast.
Yeah, we kind of got shoved out of our own podcast.
Yeah, we did it to ourselves. Much like Chris this episode.
Yep, self-inflicted wounds is the theme. And we should at least discuss opinions of this episode, since that is why we're here. I enjoyed it. I thought it was decent. It was probably the best of the season so far, although I don't know that that's the highest of bars, because it's been relatively pedestrian start. What did you think?
Yeah, I think, this it was looking to be that same thing for much of the episode, which I should make clear for me. It's fine. There's nothing that I had been super excited for thus far this season. But more importantly, there also hasn't been anything that's really bothered me this season. And I'm okay to wait, especially because I'm not somebody who tends to watch this with rooting interest beyond being interesting. Which I want to also make clear is not a judgment on those who do. It's a perfectly natural thing to have people or teams that you want to do well. It's just I've moved past that largely because my interests now lie in give me stuff to talk about. But so that's how it was going for most of the episode. And then the end came and lots of interesting things happened. So I agree. It was probably for the best so far for a season that's, been fine thus far.
Yeah. And did you get any sort of flashbacks to previous seasons with Wendy saving herself there?
Yeah, it's kind of Abba Maria-y for me. Except I want to also just clarify, she did nothing to save herself. Wendy has not saved herself yet. Wendy has just been saved through the actions of others.
See, I felt it like it was more Jatia-esque, even to the point of her potentially trying to sabotage food.
That's a pretty good parallel, because it's like somebody who, what? You guys are going to get rid of me while you're going to pay, and then, oh, wait, you didn't get rid of me.
My bad.
Except I think much like Jatia, she probably won't be like, my bad. She'll just, steer into the skid.
Well, the other thing, that's similar in both cases is that, players on the bottom can end up being attractive allies. And I think Wendy's type sort of indicates that she would be a attractive ally to have because she doesn't come off like she's like a loose cannon or a jerk, even though she keeps voting for Kelly and she stole the Flint and is considering letting the chickens go.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm going with the Abby Maria, but I think it's important to note like you do. She seems normal. There isn't a book on her, unlike there was for Cambodia. And that, yes, there people who should be voting her out are starting to look elsewhere, and those people very well might suffer as a result of that decision. And we're kind of dancing around it, but like, how on earth was she safe from the vote? This is somebody who's limping around, somebody who, sure, they don't know that she stole the Flint, although many of them had good suspicions for it. Somebody who is targeting one of the people in the alliance, although I think that's part of the answer of how she's safe, is that it's not that strong an alliance. And somebody who, is bothering you about the chickens, even if you cannot pinpoint to specific sabotage. I know, after week 1, there was a lot of people online complaining that poor Reem did not deserve this. She did not deserve to get targeted out. She did not deserve to get voted. And, my response to that was, what does deserve got to do with anything? And I think this is the inverse. I'm not sure there's been many people in the history of Survivor who deserve to be voted out more than Wendy did in this episode. And she didn't, because deserve ain't got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and I think David very astutely took advantage of something that's become relatively ingrained, at least among the more strategic Survivor players. The seemingly safe votes are the times to strike, because if it seems like the vote is going somewhere, people get their guard down. It's a little bit easier to pull off the blind side. When there's such an obvious target, it's like, oh, okay, we can relax this one. We'll come back to strategizing 3 days from now. If you strategize in the moment when everybody else is calm and not scrambling, you can potentially pull off something, and that's what they were trying to do.
And yet it still didn't work. So much
not.
for that. And it's just like, I think some of the reason why, before this episode's even over, that, dead weight, chicken loving, Wendy isn't even a target at all is because I think this group had gotten a bit of Survivor blue balls. They'd had two vote outs where it was kind of just like, let's pick out the obvious, the person that isn't within us, the person who, is maybe making the tribe weak. And they didn't want to do that again. There's like, this is the time, I'm going to do something. And yes, David was saying, I've got the smoke screen, but I don't know if it was that effective if everybody else was like, but maybe something else. I think they didn't want to just keep following the script. They wanted to do something because that's what's ingrained in the modern Survivor player. And I think in some ways it highlights that while it's not interesting for us as fans, and we will rail against it and, decry the name of like a poor Kellen or something, maybe there's something to people who are managed to like get that discipline of, no, how about we just keep taking out these easy targets?
Well, I mean, as you said, or alluded to at least, I think there's a much more ingrained sense in these players that you've got to have the big moves, resume, blah, 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 all the things that have become tropes now. I think the casting process has probably tried to find people that are buying into those ideas so that when they get out there, you get a more exciting show. So I'm going to blame it on that.
Yeah, and it worked, right? Like, this episode was far more interesting because Wendy was targeted. But it really should have been her. And obviously, as you say, they know for sure that she took the Flint. Although I don't know if everybody was like, okay, well, David said no, so we're good. I think probably still were reasonable suspicions. And again, also, she's got a bum ankle. And moreover, I would have just voted her out for all of that chicken nonsense. Just let me eat the chicken in peace. I don't need to hear this from you, especially as infuriating as it got down the line. And we're going to talk about that a bit more later. But it's like, you should have just done it. Just one more vote because I know David thinks that Wendy is a strong ally for him. I'm not sure why he thinks that.
Well, as I was getting to earlier, like, she comes off as the type that would be, but that you're ignoring all the evidence to the contrary. You're just basing it on, like, little aspects of her personality that make you think, like, oh, she's loyal. No, actually, she's really stubborn. She's not loyal. She's not voting the same way you would want her to, even when it would benefit her to do so. She's not an ideal ally, but I think that because their interests potentially intersected here, David was like, oh, this is perfect. I should keep Wendy because we'll be great together. And I don't think Wendy was gung-ho on that plan. Wendy was like, I'm going to vote for Kelly. It's cool if you guys want to vote with me. Yay.
Well, I'll say this for Wendy, because, Emma's pointed this out a few times, I think, in comments and stuff, that, she hasn't voted with you yet, David. She kind of maybe did, but at least this one. Because I don't think they ever told her that the vote wasn't for Kelly. They might not have told her that the vote was for Chris. So in some ways she was voting with David this time, just he was not voting with her. Except that in itself is the red flag. The reason why you didn't tell Wendy that the votes flipped to Chris, if indeed they did not tell her, is because you're not trusting her. And that's the thing. If you're not trusting her, then what are we even talking about here? And maybe that even extends last week. It's like, actually, we're just not going to tell Wendy that we're voting for Keith. If you're afraid to tell somebody that you're doing these things, and that A, they're not a good alliance partner, and B, you're making them a worse alliance partner by continually shutting them out of the vote. But I think your point is, well put, that she's stubborn. Because even forget, maybe she was voting the way she was told after the first week, which we already had evidence that she won't do it if it's against her interests. The chicken stuff tells you how stubborn she is.
Yep.
It was red flags all over.
Yeah, they really hung a lantern on it this week.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's why I keep saying Abby Maria is a bunch of people who think that, I can use her as a tool, and I think that they will get burned as a result. And this week, I don't think, she didn't burn anybody. Again, she was out of the vote. I mean, most likely, I suppose we don't have full evidence, but yes, she was. But going forward, this is not the person that you want to be playing with. And obviously, we have the benefit of next time on Survivor, and also, seeing her take the Flint. But I think many people will rue the day they did not take out Wendy. But, I think why David didn't want to do it is because, as you were getting to, she's at least an ally in his fight against Kelly. Because we know one thing about Wendy is that she wants to vote out Kelly, and apparently David really wants to vote out Kelly. And I guess my question for you is, why?
Yeah, they're working the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario. I'm a little confused about David's fixation on taking out Kelly. She will always be the bigger returnee target over David. Like, she's a great shield for him. If they're going to take out returnees, it's kind of like the other tribe where Aubrey's going to get taken out before Joe, because if you're taking out returnees, why not at least keep Joe around for as long as you can? Similarly here, if you're targeting the returnees, why not take out Kelly, figuring that it's a lot easier to take out David? So I don't get why he would want to remove that potential layer of protection from himself.
And the way he describes her for us, because the way he describes her for other people, I don't care about, make up the lie and live the lie if you need to. If there's somebody you want to put out, you're under no obligation to tell the truth of why you're coming up with reasons why somebody should vote somebody that's not you in the game. But, in Confessions for Us, it's like he just talks about her as she's some kind of backstabbing mastermind, and no, not really. Maybe if you were Fishbach, she kind of turned on him really quickly. I guess she helped vote out Joe too. So I guess there's some, but I think what it is the impact that her idol moves made. I think, that just made such a big name for her. And I think in modern Survivor, and especially a player like David, that brings with it a level of fear that, oh man, she makes these big moves. When it's like, well, if she has an idol, she does, and he doesn't know that she doesn't, which could explain a bit of other behaviors. Maybe that's why he has Kelly, or Wendy vote Kelly, if indeed he had anything to do with that. Maybe that's why at Tribal Council he starts talking weird in a way that seems like it's spoiling the plan, because he's like, oh, we're going after the biggest social threat. I kind of feel like he said that because he forgot that he was supposed to be pretending to both sides that he was pretending to be voting for Wendy. But maybe he's trying to flush an idol. I don't know. But it's just like the way his rhetoric and why he feels threatened by Kelly is not really attuned to her history as a Survivor player, and maybe more importantly, B, what's actually happening with her as a Survivor player right now, because she has no intention of voting out David.
Well, I think that the tribal council theatrics were more about David working on some sort of act where it seemed like he was hinting that he would vote out Kelly because that was the plan that Chris knew. And then Kelly being like, oh my God, is it me? Are we talking about me? To play along with that plan, because clearly Kelly and David at that point had already decided to vote together. So maybe this was just to keep Chris feeling like the plan was still in place.
Yeah, but except like he and Chris have a plan to take out Kelly, but part of that plan is pretend that they're taking out Wendy. Right? Like, so that might, like, if you're like Chris, you'd be like, dude, shut up. We're supposed to be blindsiding her. You know, at the same time with Kelly, dude, we're trying to be blindsiding him. Like, everybody was supposed to be pretending that Wendy was the target when she wasn't the target for anybody. And so, I mean, for one, the most likely scenario is just like David kind of forgot that because in his mind, he was juggling between two plans that had nothing to do with, Wendy. And thus, yes, I mean, he's pretending for Kelly to, blindside Chris, or even, his thing was so generic that maybe Chris is a social threat or whatever. But yeah, I still don't understand why he's so excited. Like, I'm okay with the idea of taking out, Kelly for any of the players there. Him a little less than any of the others, but, he's got a relationship with, Rick, and, he's trying to build, or at least he seemed to be trying to build relationships with Chris and War Dog. And I think all of these players that aren't returnees should be thinking about taking out returnees, because I've been on the Survivor internet and I know what happens when you get beaten by a returnee. They call you the dumbest players in the history of the game, and they will basically say that you were working to get that person to win, that the fix was all in, you're just actors in the play. So you don't want to be that.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to know exactly what the motivation was here. You know what? Why don't we just start talking about the plan to target Chris? Because that's eventually what we're going to lead into anyway. Mm-hmm. Somehow, the plan quickly switches from let's target Kelly to let's target Chris. And the only real explanation we got for that was David and Rick saying, hey, don't go tell Corndog this. And then Chris goes and runs his mouth. And then the vote suddenly goes to Chris. We didn't see any other further discussion. It was just like, seems like we should go after Chris. He's making these plans on the side. I don't understand. He's not looping us in. What the hell? Why do you think it switched to Chris so easily?
Yeah, and I think we need to attack this by a couple of things, because the first person to flip it to Chris was Warhorse, and that was just weird, right? Because it should be noted that Chris did not tell Warhorse that David and Rick were in on the plan, and I think that was Chris's way of somewhat keeping his word to them. He didn't tell Warmonger that it was going to be this is what they want, or do you want to do this with us? It was just what Chris was doing. It's like, maybe we should consider voting Kelly out. Almost like they were coming up with a plan and then they try to get the votes after. So in that sense, it protected Chris and Rick, although it's not what Chris was, or not Chris and Rick, David and Rick.
David and Rick.
But I don't think that's what Chris was trying to do. I do think he was trying to I think he was trying to keep his word to them in some way, but he was trying to keep his number one ally, War Dog, in the loop. And somehow War Dog is so threatened by that he has to vote out the person who seems to be within his pairing. And I don't understand that, because if you're really against the idea of voting out Wentworth, why not just say no and say we're voting for Wendy?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, when Chris first approaches him about the idea, he's like, hey, but how about instead of Wendy, Wentworth? Just say, no, I don't like that plan. It's still Wendy. We didn't really see a clear through line from, hey, it should be Wendy, to, you know what? Now that you brought up Wentworth, I think it should just be you. And as you said, when he comes to have this discussion with Porn Dog, he doesn't mention that David and Rick are already in on this plan, that they already have the votes, and whatever his justifications for that were. It was just, why not? I mean, I guess the appeal is either what you said, or to make it seem like he's approaching Warblog first because he's like, you're my number one. I always want to discuss with you before I discuss with anybody else. And that's why you're not going to reveal that you have 2 other votes ready to go your way. But at the same time, like, why not at least show him that this is the path of least resistance? Like, this option is already laid out right in front of you. There is nothing to stand in your way if you want to do it. There's no convincing of anybody that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think what Chris was doing is he was trying what Warsaw was doing last week, which was, I'm going to make it seem like it's their idea. So in putting it as like, well, yeah, that's an interesting thought, but what do you think of this? Like, maybe he was trying to get it so that, Warbird was like, yes, we should do that. Me and you. Okay, whose votes we can get. And it would make, him buy into the concept more. So I get completely what Chris was doing. It still blew up in his face. I just don't understand what the dog was doing, man. It makes no sense to me. Because it's like, even for him, last week, he was like, no, I don't want to, vote out Wentworth. I want to get rid of Keith. And the big part of that was that he wants to have shields around. Yes, that made perfect sense. I praised him for that concept. That's sound, of thinking. I don't know that getting rid of Chris and keeping Kelly effectively keeps your shield level at the same level it was. At any rate, you are losing some of your shielding here. Why not lose the one who you are less close to? Now, maybe he thinks, and maybe he knows that he's closer to Kelly. I mean, clearly he thinks he is. But it should also be pretty obvious that Kelly is close to Lauren in a way that nobody else is close to Chris. So it's just like, it makes no sense that he wouldn't want to do it for one, other than just say, no, let's just do Wendy, which makes perfect sense to me. But that the very concept of Chris talking to him about it was like, Chris has got to go. What?
It really did just kind of come out of nowhere for me. Just, I get that maybe you make the argument that Chris's interests aren't aligned with yours, but at the same time, he's coming to talk to you. You have some level of relationship where it's probably going to be an exchange of ideas. Let him brainstorm and then you just respond with, no, I disagree. Why can you not disagree with this person? And then instead, you're going to take him out and keep someone in the game that is never on your side. Like, you kept Wendy in the game, who was your initial target, who was never with you. Like, yeah. I really don't understand.
And again, it's like, if Chris had approached Warthog the way that, like, a lot of people think he should have with, me, Rick, and David are in on this. We already got Wendy. We have the votes. You should come with us. Then I could understand him feeling threatened. Like, oh man, Chris is a major player. He's going after targets. If I let him get Kelly, he's going to get me next. But it wasn't that. It was a very casual, hey, let's you and me, decide this. Let's decide the fate of this tribe. And from that, the dog was all like, oh man, he's got to go now. He's clearly coming after me. No, he's not at all. So it was just such a weird leap, especially from a guy who just a week ago, and frankly, before that conversation started, seemed to be very much, let's get rid of, the weaker parts of the tribe, stay strong, keep enough shields around for me. And he goes from that and to, I'm gonna get rid of the biggest, strongest guy on this tribe who just won me chickens, because that guy said to him, hey, what do you think about this idea?
Right. Like, if that's all it took to make you turn on me, I don't know that makes the porn dog an appealing ally later on to anybody else. Like, look how quickly he fucking flipped. In one sense, if you're Kelly, you're like, hey, cool. I guess we can be closer now. Maybe she can loop him in with the Lauren alliance she's got going on. But I just... that's all it took for him to flip on what seemed like an ally to him. Maybe he just didn't ever view it as quite the alliance that Chris seemed to think it was.
Yeah, and then that brings us to the next part. So yeah, Wardog wants to do this, and he goes to David and Rick. And David, who wants to get rid of Wentworth, said, okay, I guess I'm not going to get rid of Wentworth, even though you don't need the board dog. You don't need him at all. You have the votes. As long as Chris is one of them. Now I understand the quick motivation of like, man, we just told you not to talk to this guy, and how that might make you feel about Chris, and maybe he's like a little unreliable, but it's like, it's whatever. The other flip side is, now you're going with somebody who's like, we gotta get rid of this guy who just flipped like that. There's no stable, person if you're untrusting of Chris, and I feel like Chris's sin is more easily forgivable. He's like, okay, well, we know now, and, we know where he's at, and frankly, if we want to teach Chris an abject lesson and thus make him our ally forever, we should just go tell him that Bordog is after him. But no, they're like, okay, well, now we're gonna vote out Chris.
Yeah, and I guess the thinking there is that because Chris never outed them as part and parcel of that plan to vote out Kelly, they can then say like, oh man, I can't believe Chris is turning on you, Kelly. Obviously, we are still on board with you. I guess that's the motivation. And I think there's probably something in the back of their minds that's like, oh shit, she's tipped off. She might, if she does have an idol, try to play it.
But the beauty there is they're voting for Chris now. So if it doesn't work out, it's not going to bounce on you, So
right.
if you're so hell bent on taking her out, this is a perfect opportunity. You have, 4 votes. They have 3. And they think that you're part of those votes, so they're not coming after you, they're coming after Chris, even if an idol is played. Now, I think, he did talk about this briefly, and I think there is some sense, especially if you're anticipating, which you should be, that a swap is imminent at some point. I'm not saying they're all like, this is it before the swap, but if a season has a swap, it's going to happen soon. Is that by taking out Chris, he makes no enemies. The only enemy he makes is out of the game for all he knows. Wendy is still, on his side, presumably, maybe, or at least not against him. She's still, ready to be deployed against Kelly. Kelly and Lauren and War Dog don't know that you're not with them, whereas if you take out Kelly, Lauren and, Snore Dog would have been right there. And thus, there's no enemies, his hands are clean, and thus, if you go into a swap, no matter who he ends up with, it's still a working relationship. And I gotta say, that makes complete sense. Except that you wanted to take out Kelly, and you didn't want to tell War Dog. So you, like 5 minutes ago, or half an hour ago, or 5 hours, whatever, were ready to make those enemies heading into a swap. Those were acceptable collateral damage for, the move you need to make to get rid of Kelly Wentworth, the most threatening player in the game to you. And then this other thing happens, it's like, oh no, now it's too dangerous. It's like, if you really were worried about the potential danger of making enemies before our swap, you could vote on Wendy. That's a possibility.
Right.
And everybody would have been fine. It would have been a chalk vote.
Yeah, I think something probably happened. Obviously something happened that we didn't get to see, where David and Rick got cold feet just because Cold Slog got, like, wind of this plan and talked about it in front of them, and they were like, oh crap, now we've got to play along. But as you said, there was going to be collateral damage anyway. Why not make the collateral damage happen? I don't get it. I guess, maybe at that point you see like, well, I guess keeping Kelly is more useful to us somehow. I'm still confused.
Yeah, and look, I think she is useful for you, David, except that was true before any of this happened.
Right.
The things that happened did not change that equation for you, and moreover, it did not make Chris less useful for you. This is a guy who 2 weeks in a row now was at least amiable to vote with you. In fact, to do so without even you necessarily bringing it up. And now you're like, I guess you just got cold feet. Ultimately, Occam's razor is just that. All of a sudden, it's not going to be a blindside. It gets a little scary, but it's just like, yeah, but you got the votes. And I know idols are a thing, but they're not coming back on you. Just nut up if this is what you need to do. And ultimately, this is why I never believed that Kelly was in trouble in the first place. It just feels like, people need it to be such a big thing that it's just so easy to derail. And we'll see if that carries forward. Eventually, you guys are going to have to vote out returnees, or I'm going to start making fun of you guys. I'm going to do it. It's going to be my turn to be like, oh, it's so easy for returnees. All of these people are here. Just the fix is in.
They just coast to the end every single time.
We might need to stop talking about, Odd Job before we run out of ways to say his name.
So one last thing, not to reference a secret scene, but there's a good one that, if we have a secret scene or bonus scenes post this week, I'm sure we'll be in there. I'll just go ahead and describe what it is.
Yes, because
people probably have not seen it at this point. So there's a secret scene from this week, which didn't air in the show, but it showed, Sordong pretending that he's got like a crutch like Wendy, and he's like making fun of her for being gimpy and hobbled. And so David has this whole confessional like, hey, that's really screwed up. We're fellow human beings. Like, don't treat her like crap just because she's injured. That's not cool. I was picked on and I don't like that. But as you mentioned earlier, he has 4 votes on his side. Like, if he didn't like that behavior, and it clearly occurred in the time frame where he could then vote out Coleslog, like, you have the 4 votes, just like you said earlier, say to Chris, hey man, he tried to turn this on you. Let's all 4 of us take him out instead. There was clearly some sort of motivation on David's part to do that. Like, if you don't respect him as a person, you're not going to be his ally later, take him out now.
Yeah, or the fact that he seems fairly volatile. I mean, I'm sure, like, you don't need to talk to that dude for very long to feel like he's probably a volatile personality. He calls himself the War Dog. So just there is probably all you need. But then this instance of, hey, it's going to be Chris. Like, that should be enough. I don't know. And nothing we saw from the crazy events flipping back and forth made it ever seem to me that Chris suddenly became the most dangerous person on the island for David and Rick. None of it. If Kelly was it before, she still is it now. If Wendy was before, or if not dangerous, detrimental, or, and if anybody seemed dangerous as a result was, War Dog. But in the end, it was Chris. And, why did it happen? Because he talked to the wrong person. But frankly, I have a hard time even faulting with him. I thought his approach was fine, and he thought that guy was his ally.
And it's strange too, because, in the Invisible Tribe that I guess eventually we'll talk about, they have Joe, who's their best challenge competitor and has helped them win a whole bunch of challenges. Chris is seemingly this tribe's best challenge competitor. They keep leaning on him for these various slingshot type things, the more strength based things, throwing things at the end of challenges. And so he's clearly not like the most strategically adept. He's kind of like a store brand Joe, right? So how is that really that threatening? Because it just seems like, similarly to Joe, he's someone you can always take out. You can always unite people to take him out. And I don't see what the impetus is to be like, yeah, we got to get him out here. He's disloyal. Let's get him.
And what's crazy for Chris is he did this last time. He went to Mordog and it was just like, hey, what do you think about voting out Kelly? And they had a reasonable discussion at the end. Chris gave what he wanted. He did not vote for Kelly. It seemed like it was a working relationship. So I don't get why this time it was a problem. And frankly, in the discussion between those two, I certainly shouldn't be calling that guy Mordog and not Chris.
No, you certainly should not.
But yeah, it's just like, why was it like that after last week? War Dog was like, no, I'm not voting out Kelly and don't ever bring it up again. Because it's just like, last week this was cool, and this week it wasn't. I could almost understand. It's just like, no, it has to be Wendy. I'm tired of hearing about the chickens. But that wasn't his reaction. His reaction was, alright, it's Chris.
And speaking of Chris, my wife, in honor of International Women's Day, I'll share this story. My wife, was, half paying attention to the episode, and she looks up and she's like, oh, that guy's handsome. And I'm like, oh, have I got some news for you?
I brought my wife to the computer and showed her the GIF. And she's like, oh my.
If you don't know what we're talking about, kids, you're just going to have to search around on the Survivor internet for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted this, and ultimately, I think where it all went wrong for Chris is that during the reward challenge, he wore jeans. And that's just not right.
Just disappointing the viewership. All right, so let's talk about that invisible tribe that we alluded to, the lack of screen time tribe. You have any sort of impression of what's going on over there? Any sort of storylines that are actually intriguing you from that side?
I mean, that's just the way you frame that question. No. But I will say that it had my favorite scene of the entire season, last episode on that tribe. And that was when, I'm going to have to look up his name here, Ron and Victoria were sitting around by the water chatting. And it seemed to me that Ron was just like, what about these returnees? I don't know about them. And then Victoria's like, yeah, we got to get rid of Joe. And he was right freaking there. And that's such a great comedy beat. We've seen it in Survivor at least a couple of times, you know, really famously with Kelly Wentworth, with Drew Spragg talking, but she was still at least, I think, like 8 feet away from him. Probably even worse than this is when Russell's talking to Rob about voting out Courtney and Sandra, and then the camera pulls back to see the chip sitting next to him in the conversation.
Oh, that's still my favorite one.
Yeah, but this is classic because they weren't in the bushes, they weren't in the jungle. He wasn't hiding. How do you not know another human being is right behind you? It's just in the sand.
I mean, I guess maybe if I'm trying to meekly defend them, and far be it from me to ever do so, maybe you just get used to seeing there's like, obviously there's cameramen and, you know, mic operators and things like that are around all the time, producers, just there's bodies all around that you don't ever see because the show is so well done. You know, maybe she just got so comfortable with having other bodies around, she didn't think that the shirtless one leaning down next to her in the water might be Joe.
Yeah, and shout out to Indescribable Hat, I believe, who pointed that out in comments. That's a possibility, like a slight defense of, yeah, you just get so used to ignoring people. But, yeah, one, that's a bad look, man. If you're talking, you know, shit about somebody, you should probably give it at least a one glance over. Like, hey, while we're talking about this, where's Joe? Not here, cool. But he was at her feet, man. It was so funny. It's like talk. And like, when, I think maybe you get a sense of Ron or her climbing up, doing the classic that's like so cliche that it's Hori in a sitcom of, oh, he's right, standing right behind me, isn't he? It's just like, is Joe coming down the beach? But no, he was right there. Yeah. He wasn't even a Joe's length away from her.
When she says, right behind me, he was actually right behind her. It was like, if she'd spun around with her arms out, she would have smacked him.
Yeah. And like, almost in her defense, at least her back is turned. What's up with Buddy? She's not that big a human to hide a Joe Angelo from.
Oh, maybe he was blinded by Victoria's presence. He couldn't see past her.
I mean, I would almost accept that if it were me. But much like me, he's way too old to be like that in her presence. She's just somebody on TV. Yeah, no, it was just so funny. And I love it so much. So, yeah, am I interested in storylines there? Not really. I guess there is another one. We'll get to it pretty quickly. But, if all we get is just that, and actually what's great, somebody else points this out, and obviously, so much of this could be editing, right? Maybe they weren't actually saying those things or specifically saying some of the things and it was there. But Joe later in a confessional, and this one especially because you don't know where he actually said this or not, but I don't care because it's funny, is like, I'm not sure about that, Ron and Victoria. I can't get a read on them. You can't get a read on them. They were just talking about getting rid of you while you were there.
I just stumbled upon some valuable information when covertly I acquired the information that they're attacking me. I don't know if I can trust these people. I don't know if they're on my side or not.
I want somebody to let us know if there's like a secret scene of Joe building like a spy bunker in the surf. And he's like, hey, weird, there's an idol here. But otherwise, also just popping up. Cause he wasn't hiding. He wasn't doing anything. He was just down there gathering water. I don't know how you have, in a place where it's otherwise empty, you know? I understand, like, in a crowded room, you can only have so much, sensual awareness of where people are. But, like, you should detect the presence of another human being. There are sense that we have, you know, sound, sight. I imagine smell at this point might be a big one, but no, not that. It's just so good. Those right there. Those are the three best camera pulls back to reveal more information in the history of Survivor for me.
Yeah. I'd almost forgotten about the Sandra and Courtney thing until you said it though. That was, God, that whole season is just loaded with it, but I
love Rob in that scene because at first he just can't stop laughing. It's like us right now. It's like, are you really doing this? They're right here, man. What do you expect to happen in this conversation? What kind of psychopath are you? And the answer is a pretty demented one.
Right, I was going to say, I think there's clinical answers to that.
So, I mean, the only other storyline that's even happening in that tribe is that everybody seems to be ready to vote out Aubrey, which, you know, good for them. Vote out a returnee, otherwise we're going to insult you for the rest of your Survivor career. And now that's become potentially very harder.
Yeah, because Aubrey found an idol and we got to see, like, flashbacks to Aubrey looking for idols. And I made the joke on Twitter that we saw more of her in Game Changers than we ever actually saw of her in Game Changers.
Hey, was it shocking for you to learn that sometimes people were looking for idols, even though it didn't make the edit of the season that they were in?
Oh, see, I always assumed that women don't actually look for idols, and that's why they don't find them. I was so stunned to find out that they are also looking for idols, and that sometimes the guys just find them instead. Who would have thought?
I thought it was weirdest about that footage is that she seemed to be looking outside of camp, which I had heard that women aren't allowed to leave camp in Survivor, so that would have had to be a big, obstacle. Somebody on Twitter pointed out, I think the biggest success she had this season was that she was not on a season with Ty, who already had the idols, so she was always looking for.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so she found one. That's cool. I think her finding it was the most interesting person on that tribe to get one. Not necessarily because I'm, a big Aubrey stan. I think, I have a history that would put me not on that, despite the fact that, I'm also not pro Michelle. But that it's always most interesting when the person who most needs the idol is the one who receives it.
Exactly, because idols are only interesting if they're in the hands of people that will play them. And Aubrey definitely seems to have the sense that she'll need to play it at some point. So in that specific sense, it is good that she found it. If it was one of those other nameless, faceless players on that tribe, they might just hold on to it for 7-8 episodes and we'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot so-and-so had that way down the
Much like this episode had no care for the fact that Ron's idol / rewards steal / everything expired this episode without ever getting a chance to use it, and they didn't even care to check in with him about it.
Yep. The whole reward menu thing is now gone and wasted. It did say first 3 tribals overall, right? Not just the first 3 he's in.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm like 99% sure that it's overall. So it is almost definitely killed off by now, but...
Well, sure, because there was also the reward steal aspect of it, and there were 3 rewards that have come and gone. So yeah, I think it would almost have to be. And then frankly, that also dovetails nicely with the fact that there's a swap. So yeah. Before the swap, it ended up being... and frankly, that they did not revisit that with Ron, who is one of the only non-returnees on that tribe to get some time, and basically he's just dancing old man. Anybody on that tribe who might be, just theoretically out there complaining of their lack of airtime, I don't know if it's, an institutional discrimination so much as they don't care about any of you at all. If your name is not Aubrey or Joe or, old man who dances funny or redhead who doesn't see people behind her, they don't care about you yet because it doesn't matter.
And to be clear, redhead only made it on the show in this episode because of how badly she goofed.
Yeah, you don't want that kind of heat.
Right.
Unless you're just like, I'll take anything. That's not what I went to be on TV to be on TV. Right, to the point where when one of them was counting up how many people they had against the returnees, and they only came up with 6, I was like, there's wait, there's 9 people on that tribe, right? Yeah, it's 18, 9. I could not place at all who that third person was until they told it to me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what happens, especially what happens when they have a secondary location to pay attention to, which is why it's so great that there's going to be 4 next week.
Yeah, I mean, this is how early parts of the season go. You have to have some sort of story about the tribe that's losing and who's getting voted out. You're not going to see a lot of the tribe that wins unless something particularly interesting happens. If you find an idol that's going to get shown, you'll get like a brief glimpse of camp life for a minute, maybe. Like quick check-ins with people, but you're not going to get substantial storylines if your tribe keeps winning. So if you are the person that's like, I need camera time, intentionally Matt Singh, lose the challenges. You will get tons of potential airtime. And then B, if you really want airtime, get rid of the people that they most want to put on TV, Aubrey and Joe. And at the very least, that tribe seems to be on board with that concept.
Yeah, but even there, that's kind of working against them because it's like 6 people with one plan, so you really don't need to visit too much of it. It's like, all right, we got the storyline that's going to happen, and then we'll just, if it happens, it happens. And frankly, we know it won't happen on that level because the tribe's going to change. I mean, I'm not saying that Aubrey and Joe won't, Aubrey isn't going to be a target, post-swap, but it won't necessarily, in fact, it can't be with all 6 because I just did the math in my head. It will not be a 7-person tribe.
Well, certainly not.
I mean, it would be really weird anyway, I suppose. I shouldn't count any chickens. Yeah, maybe they don't divide all 3 tribes, evenly. Hey, speaking of, counting chickens.
Oh boy.
It's not next on our list, but let's get to it now because that segue, it was just so,
teed up for you.
So for the segment that we've been doing every episode so far this season, this might be new to you, John, because let's not pretend you've been listening.
I haven't.
But you'll need to pay attention because now you'll be setting them up for at least 2 of the next 3 weeks. Marks for Extinction, where we bring up something that's happening in the Survivor, the show, the fandom, whatever, and discuss whether it needs to go extinct. And I think for this episode, it makes most sense for us to discuss, do giving out live chickens as rewards, does that need to go extinct on Survivor? Did you understand that that's what I meant when I wrote this down?
I totally did not. Because
let me go for a bit while you say.
No, because I remember having this discussion weeks ago about like what sort of things we're going to discuss during the season. And it's all coming back to me now. And I totally didn't get that that's what this was referring to. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's the reason they'd probably be inclined to keep it is because they have managed to get some sort of storyline out of it. Ty keeping the chicken as a pet, Kimmy fighting to keep chickens alive, blah, 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 those sorts of things. And then, of course, you get the chance to bring Sia to the finale. Oh my God, it's so exciting. Sia's here. So in that sense, I get why they're trying to keep it. I don't know that those sorts of storylines appeal to me so much. So yeah, I'm fine if you want to kill that off as a reward from now on and just give them that floppy disk of pizza that they get instead.
Yeah, I mean, they give them other meat that they don't make them kill. Yeah, they've gotten beef and steak before too. So it's just chicken that they're like, hey, it's time to slaughter it up. And I'll say, like, yeah, a lot of the stories I find annoying in the way that, I often find people who criticize the food chain to be annoying. While still trying to actually respect the fact that, yeah, some people are vegetarian and that's fine. That's cool. But, it's the same beats all the time, right? It's, I'm squeamish, or even people who aren't necessarily opposed to the idea of, meat being eaten, or even, getting to eat this specific animal that's going to be fed to them, but being squeamish about the act of doing it. There's, chickens getting loose, people freeing chickens. And it's all similar storylines as you tweeted out. You know, let's find out who's most Southern. That's going to be the person who has to kill a chicken. Because for us city folk, that's what the South is. You guys are just all wearing your overalls and just like, you know, animals walking around your living room.
Yeah, you pop out of the womb and you're like, all right, where's the chicken? Time for me to kill it.
You guys are just milk cows in the morning and slaughter chickens in the afternoon. That's how we envision your lives.
Yeah, I should have at least delivered that where's the chicken part with some sort of twang in my voice. I just don't naturally slip into that, so I couldn't do it.
So yeah, that's kind of annoying, but I'll say, no, it doesn't need to go away because they do still find drama, as this episode showed. It's annoying drama. God damn, Wendy was annoying, but it's something, you know, but man, how weird was she in this episode?
Just to quickly go on a tangent here, I think I like your idea. They should just give him a cow. So let's see what happens. Let's see who's willing.
That's the thing, like, you had He Who Shall Not Be Named, you know, hunting down a wild boar and killing it in season 2, and there were complaints. That's a little too graphic. And so, yeah, and they've got that, yeah. They manufactured a scene where in Game Changers, oh man, let's have this debate, and we're not gonna kill these goats, and Sandra's like, kill the goddamn goats, and then apparently they went ahead and killed the goats, but they didn't show that on TV. But we don't care about chickens, kill the damn chickens, fine. I mean, and some people really like it, see it gives out money. But even from that perspective, the story, I think the jig is up. Enough of us have tweeted, and I was probably like the 1,000th person, but, you know, I watched, like, tape delayed, you know, off time zone, so it wasn't, I didn't get the idea from somebody else, but while I was tweeting it, I knew many people had for it.
For sure.
It's like, oh, she's going after that Sia money. Like, I almost think that, like, that we might be blowing it for Wendy. Although, you know, maybe Sia doesn't follow us on Twitter. It's possible.
So anyway, getting back to Wendy, I actually respect her part-time vegetarianism. Like, in the moments you're not eating meat, you're vegetarian. That is the easiest possible way to be vegetarian.
That's right. I've been vegetarian since I finished that pizza an hour ago.
I had a sausage for breakfast, but ever since then, I have been vegetarian.
Yeah. It's just like, I could have had the cheese, but I mean, the pepperoni was right there. I'll be vegetarian again till probably lunchtime tomorrow, so that's pretty solid. Yeah, and look, I guess she's come on Twitter and says, I'm still vegetarian, so I mean, spoiler alert, she's not participating in any more, her good reward challenges from here on out. But, yeah, no, that was crazy. Not just, look, I get, not everybody wants, like, an animal killed in front of them. Rick was like, I ain't doing it. But to be, like, this insistent, and then turn around and be like, well, no, sure, I eat meat. Just, you know, when it's been shut in a dark hole its entire life and then, you know, had an electric rod shoved up his ass. That's how I like my meat. Not like this. Not when I've heard it make noises.
Yeah, I like that the factory farming thing was cool with her, but she's like, oh, no, snapping its neck? Oh, that's disgusting. How could you ever?
And it's like, we have to set it free. Guess what's going to happen to that chicken when he set it free?
But that's different.
Predators will get it. That's how food works. It's not just going to go live a full chicken life. In fact, it'll probably just hang around the area because it's a chicken and it's stupid. Especially because, you know, any animal that we've raised, for, you know, millennia now to be livestock, have basically had most of their brain power taken out of them.
Yep.
Except for the one that's really tasty with breakfast. Maybe not so much them. But like chickens are basically just kind of walking vegetables at this point. So yeah.
But not like, vegetables. Or maybe that's what confused her.
Yes. And now this has become my rant of why people should eat meat. No, it's cool if you don't. It's great. You know, just don't sit around a bunch of hungry people and try to win them over in that moment. It's really not going to be a winning argument.
Well,
and moreover, like in this specific instance, you're already the person on the bottom. You're already hurting. Like nobody has done more besides Chatia to be like, me, vote me out. I guess Zane.
Zane was a little worse. Yes.
And I think her words. And that's why I wouldn't let you say she saved herself. She absolutely did not save herself. She thought she was going, and that's why she got rid of a flint, which is used for more than just killing chickens. In fact, it's not used at all for that part of it.
I'm just picturing someone trying to light the live chicken on fire. It's terrible. Anyway, Gotta edit that part out.
No, we're not. Absolutely, we're not. So yeah, but ultimately, yeah, I guess they're still getting, some material out of it, so we can keep the live chicken rewards, even if it has a high expectation or possibility to annoy me. That's fine. The show can annoy me. It's not like it's something like really annoying, like thinking your fake idol is going to have a lot of impact on your success in the game.
So we should loop this back around because we did skip a topic here, but this actually kind of segues right into my answer to this question, which was you wanted to know who I'm liking so far, and there's one of your answers, Wendy. I have always said that if you're going to be bad at Survivor, at least be entertainingly bad, and she has done that. Bravo, Wendy.
Yeah, I mean, she annoyed me a lot, and I thought she had to go, but now that she hasn't gone, I'm okay with her, with the chickens coming home to roost, so to speak, and her causing the downfall of the people who thought that they could manipulate her. That's always a good story because it goes past to, oh my God, she's so bad, why is she still there? And more, you fools, why are you letting her still be there? That it happened that way with Abby Maria. I believe there's probably other people, but Abby Maria is the alpha and omega in this discussion.
Well, there was someone in one of the very recent seasons where we're like, okay, you no longer have the, footing to complain about this person because you keep not voting this person out. You're done. You don't have any to stand on there because you've had many opportunities and you've left the person in the game. I think it was maybe Natalie last season. I don't remember what it was, but it was just okay, you don't get to complain about her anymore.
I mean, maybe it was Angelina.
How dare you?
It was Natalie. It was absolutely Natalie. And that was a good thing. Well, I mean, after a while, obviously, with Angelina, it's don't you dare vote her out.
Exactly.
Ever.
Queen.
So you like Wendy. Anybody else?
The only other person I'm really enjoying so far has been Rick in small doses. He seems like there's something there. He's like a jovial guy and, seems relatively entertaining. It's funny that he's paired up with David and he's far more humorous than David, whose job is to write funny things for a living. I think Rick is more entertaining.
Hey, writing and talking are two different skills.
This is very true.
Take it from two people who stopped writing for the website a long time ago. I like Rick too. In this episode, he just had a few things too. And what I like about him is he gets to say the things you're not really allowed to say because when he says, oh, Rick. He could probably come around and say, it's hey, why don't we give her a war dog? Oh, Rick. And then no, I think, responding to him and, last week I said, positive things about War Dog. No, those. Last week he seemed reasonable. I had to, credit his strategy. And this week I don't understand him at all. So, no, there's that.
Yeah, I had never really gotten super strong. I mean, I agree with you last week that he was making the right decisions, but the whole warm log thing just doesn't appeal to me. It's fine. But I've had enough of your silly nickname, and you're not adding enough to the show.
Yeah, so I think that's it. But again, I'm fine with seeing who emerges, and also I'm fine with not rooting for people because I'm like a Survivor robot when it comes to these things. I'm the guy who buys League Pass and just watches every team because they want to have really strong takes of how Karl Anthony Towns is doing with Minnesota.
Well, speaking of robots, let's hear your robotic prediction, not spurred on by emotion, for next week.
Yeah, so we get the swap. That much we know. And in recent seasons, what typically happens, the person for the boot at the swap is the tribe who loses, whose previous tribe was down numbers, whoever's most threatening of that minority. And we will get a minority in every tribe because it will be odd numbers. So that would make you think that it could be, a Kelly or an Eric, or targeting Aubrey and she has the idol to protect herself. All of that seems logical. I'm going to say Wendy because she's going to release the chickens and that story will follow her to wherever she goes.
Okay. So my prediction is Aurora because I know almost nothing about her, but this episode I heard her name mentioned as a potential target with Aubrey and Joe. And since there's no way Joe's tribe will lose, I'm going to bank on Aurora being in some other tribe that's not Joe's, and she gets to be targeted because they want to take out Joe, but Joe's tribe is not losing.
That makes sense. I was gonna, like, at first if you're like, well, because I don't know who she is and then I heard her name, it's like, man, dude, you just described everybody. Like, anybody who's making the purple person who got a little, rise in, the visibility spike. Dude, that's gonna be like 7 people. But yeah, that makes sense that, the storyline of her being the one person close to returnees does not bode well if she winds up down numbers there. See, for me, for Wendy, it doesn't matter what number she ends up in. If she could end up in a 4-1 Manu advantage tribe, and they'll just be like, you messed with our chickens, you gots to go. Or, and frankly, the way I see it not being her, obviously the easiest being not going to tribal council, but the other one is if it's a 3-2 mana versus Kama advantage and she's on that tribe, she won't go, because she'll flip to the Kama side.
That would be amazing, especially when they kept her this week.
Oh, man. But yeah, I just, mess with people's food, and they have to know it's her, after they already suspected the Flint. You generally go. That's a kind of a gold standard question. I mean, Jachia survived 1 vote, but not 2.
It would be like chef's kiss perfect, is if next week, and that's the exact scenario, they end up with a 3-2 split, and she ends up taking out the porn dog instead. When if he had just stuck to his guns and taken out Wendy this week, he would have been fine, but kept it 1 more week, and then she ends up taking him out. That would be mwah.
I'd be fine with that, no worries with that. All right, that's all we got for this week, right?
That is it. Let's wrap this thing up. We can always find our content at purplerockpodcast.com. You can subscribe in all the sorts of places that you subscribe to podcasts. You can find us on Twitter. The show is at Purple Rock Pod. You are
at Purple Rock Andy.
And I am at Purple Rock John. Not that I tweet very much anymore, but sometimes I get the urge.
I'm going away for 3 weeks for the podcast. Next week, Matt and I will be on our other show talking about Captain Marvel. Go see it and then come listen to us. And then I'm just, leaving where it's cold to go where it's not.
Oh, I would like the idea of leaving where it's very warm to go where it is cold. So maybe.
All right, here's the deal. Next winter, we swap houses.
That sounds great. I'm going to shovel snow for the first time and be like, fuck this.
Yep. This isn't the magical winter wonderland I thought it would be. And I gotta drive for 45 minutes to get to these beautiful mountains in the snow? Ah!
Yep. All right, so...
and I'll be like, gators everywhere!
Yeah, and no, you'll be like, mosquitoes everywhere.
Yeah, and it's like, man, everybody on this street votes for Trump, and I don't like it.
Oh, God, too real. Anyway, so next week is me and Brad?
I mean, we'll say that, but we've been lying to you every week, apparently. But maybe this is the time. Brad, don't flake out on John.
Or do. Whatever.
I got a pact to go to the country that I was boycotting for a while, but then I decided, hey, why should I financially punish California? Because, people from, Texas and Ohio and Florida are stupid. And also, I'm going to get on a boat out of there to somewhere better not long after that.
All right, we'll enjoy that, and you'll be missed probably by someone. I don't know. Maybe even me. Who knows? We'll see.
I mean, it depends on how interesting Brad is. All right, let's hit the theme music.
All right.